You're listening to Radio Kidnappers, the voice of Hawke's Bay, and this is a program called
The Wonderful World of Wardini Books.
My pleasure, as always, to have in the extremely wonderful Lou from Wardini Books in Havelock North. How you going, Lou?
I'm well. I always think, I should have thought of a cleverer reply when you leave me that gap.
Yes,
but I never do.
Yes, you should. Yeah, maybe work on it for next
Maybe
week,
next
please.
week.
Some homework for you. Three more fabulous books to have a bit of a squiz at today, and the first one is called Remarkable Animal Stories. Tell us about it.
They're remarkable animal stories from New Zealand and Australia, and it's written by Maria Gill, who's a Kiwi, and illustrated by Emma Huia-Lovegrove, and it's published by Scholastic New Zealand and Australia, I think. And in this, we have a series of, like Maria says, remarkable animal stories, and they're all written in the present tense, and it tells you what is going on with certain animals around the world. So the first one is Kaharangi the Talking Kokako.
Oh, right, look at that.
Yeah. Beautifully illustrated, but you've got a real life picture of the actual animal that they're talking
Yes.
about. And in this one, it was a little chick, I think, who her her chest and wing muscles were not strong enough to fly, and so she was rescued and taken to Hamilton Zoo and called Kaharangi, the Maori word for blue, because they're a bit blue. And then she goes all over the place, and they keep trying to sort of make her go back into the wild, but it doesn't always go to plan. And she learns all sorts of things. They're great mimics, apparently, kokako.
Yes.
And they train her. She doesn't like to be with the other birds. She's got so used to human handlers that she just wants to hang around with humans. And she responds to humans really well. So one of the keepers at Pukaha National Wildlife Centre notices that visitors often talk to Kaharangi and they teach her things. So now whenever people say, "You're a beautiful girl," Kaharangi answers with, "I know." So she's rather gorgeous. And then you've got Henry, the oldest tuatara in captivity, who became a father at 111.
What a stud.
Yeah. They're quite gorgeous as well. Barney and Pebbles, the caring wombats. So that's obviously an Australian one. And these people have like a Brigitte Stevens in Queensland in Australia, and they've got like a sanctuary for wombats, and there are several houses on the property, and the wombats just come and go as they please, and there's just like wombats all over their furniture the whole time. But they're very social apparently, and quite cuddly. What's another one? Koala in there. Oh, an inky. So the inky, the octopus, that escaped from Napier, our national aquarium, that was Inky Mark II.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they had an inky who was a female. It's quite hard to sex an octopus, apparently, but they eventually figured out that Inky number 1 was female when she laid some eggs. That didn't go very well, and she died. But Inky 2 is an adventurous octopus. Yeah, and he did. One keeper didn't put the lid back on properly on his tank, and he just buggered off.
And they get through tiny gaps, can't they?
Because they don't have like a skeletal structure or something. So what happens all the way through the book is you get these fascinating stories, but you also get, they're quite sad stories, some of them. Like Rob, he was very unlucky in love. Albatross is supposed to mate for life or something, and he had Rob. Like 3 or 4, and they just didn't come back next year. Yeah, so he had several divorces. And then this was lovely, Migaloo, which is an Aboriginal word for, it's an albino calf that gets born, a humpback whale. And Migaloo is the white whale, and it is a white fella. Migaloo.
Let's remember that.
So there's just all these beautiful stories. There's one about Far Lap. Yes. I quite liked Little Miss Sunshine, the TV hen, and that's when loads of battery hens were released and taken, and she became quite the TV star. And they taught her how to do things, and so it's beautifully illustrated, and there's all the science as well behind what's going on with the animals. There's a conservation message, and it's very entertaining. And I think you could just give it to kids of probably. You could read it aloud to kids of about 4 and up, and then kids up to 12.
Yeah. Even I would read it.
You and I, older children.
Yes, indeed. Very older children.
Would love it. Einstein the hugging camel.
Oh, look at that. Look at that little picture.
Yeah, well, he hugs everything. He hugs baby animals. But what he does as well with the keeper, whenever she's trying to, like, interact with another animal, he just goes and, like, puts his massive teeth in her. He just wants her attention all the time. So quite adorable.
Amazing.
Yeah. So what a great book. Really like that.
That is a good book to start with. And our next book is called The Underdogs. Is that someone who sort of comes down from the bottom up and ends up on the top?
It's quite a funny story of why they're called The Underdogs, which is good because this is a children's chapter book, but with loads of pictures. all the way through. So one of the first readers that really gets kids hooked in, and it's a series. There are 2 books so far. So this one is by Kate and Joel Temple, and the art is by Shiloh Gordon. And in this one, you've got a little, it's like Dog World or something, and Dogtown. Welcome to Dogtown. But there are cats, there are other animals noodling around, and everyone seems to get on quite well. But there's the Underdog Detective Agency, and Barkley is the big German Shepherd in charge, quite a nice, kind one. And then there's a job going, and Fang is a tabby cat, and she has got one eye. She's obviously been in the wars at some point, and she's quite the little thing, and she sees the job going, and she goes and applies for the job, and they're like, but you're a cat, and this is the Underdog Detective Agency. She says, well, you know, I can do this, and I can do this, and I can leap, and I can bound, and I'm very observant. So she gets the job, and she turns up, and who's in charge? It's Carl the Chihuahua, and he's quite funny because, like, Carl, Chihuahua, wearer of Hawaiian shirts, occasional answerer of phones, and when the phone rings, he's terrified. He doesn't know, what is that? What is it? What is it? So anyway, there is a cat burglar going around stealing all sorts of things, and there's going to be this big auction of like a very beautiful diamond collar, and there's a film star called Kitty, and she's going to go and she wants to buy this, but the cat burglar has a pink scooter and a very stripy tail, and they suspect Kitty because she's got a pink scooter and a stripy tail, but obviously it's not going to turn out to be Kitty, is it?
That's right.
There's a lot more going on in here.
There's a red herring in there.
There's a red herring.
Yeah.
You see, I was thoroughly engaged all the way through, and Fang and Barkley work really well together, and it's quite comedic and quite dry humour. It's not always stupid humour. Sometimes it is, you know. I think there's probably a fart joke in there somewhere. But the top dogs are the arch nemesis, because they're like they look like agents out of the Matrix or something.
Yeah.
They're like the very professional ones. Yeah.
Who's going to read that book? Is that a book that kids are going to read, or is that a book that parents are going to read to their children and show the kids the pictures?
Both. So I think if you've got a kid who's just starting to read, you could read it together. And for independent reading, I would say if you've started to fly at 6 or 7, this is for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just really, really lovely chapter book.
And the last one might be more up my alley. She's a Killer.
She's a Killer by Kirsten McDougall. So this is another New Zealand book. It's published by Victoria University Press. And do you recognise those sorts of symbols underneath the word She's a Killer? We've got a series of...
Yeah, well, sort of something to do... They look like Braille.
They look like Braille, but if I say dots and dashes, is that a clue?
Morse code.
It's Morse code.
Yes.
Yeah, because it's sort of set, I would think, near future or around now. And it's an alternative sort of New Zealand, set mostly in and around Wellington, where climate change has just become so desperate around the world that we're getting wealthugees, people who are very wealthy and they can afford to move and invest in other countries, and so they're being let in, you know.
What a great term, wealthugees.
Wealthugees, it's happening right now, isn't it? You know, Peter Thiel springs to mind. So she's absolutely on the nose with current affairs. Kirsten McDougall is it? So that's what's happening, and it's quite dire for other people. There are food shortages, food queues, wages not very good, that kind of thing. And water's rationed, so you only get you can go on a different water rate. And our hero Alice, she gets a litre at a time out of the tap, so you can't really have a good shower or anything like that.
Yes.
So Alice is near genius IQ. She's like 1 point off. So she's super smart. She was going to be a psychologist. She had a minor setback, and she just then, because of her kind of slightly sociopathic mentality, she just went, oh, well, bugger it. And she's had this job for about 15 years at the university in recruitment and recruiting students. And she doesn't like it. She hates it. She thinks all her colleagues are a bit dumb. She doesn't like people. She doesn't like the world. She's quite sarcastic about everything. So that's Alice. And this wealthugee comes and he says, well, I want to study Russian literature. Why aren't you doing more Russian literature? And he's very wealthy. He's very handsome. And he asks her out on a date. They go on this date and they sort of click. He's got this 15-year-old daughter called Erica, who is a genius, an actual one, with the full points. So this is where we're going. And Alice lives in a 2-storey house where the stairs, there used to be stairs between the 2 floors, and it's been sort of blocked off. Her mother lives upstairs, she lives downstairs, and they haven't spoken for years. They communicate in Morse code, which is why we've got the code on the front there. So this is how bizarre Alice's life is. And then Erica moves in, and everything just completely turns to custard for Alice. She's being sort of shunted in all different ways that she kind of wants to be shunted in. And it's a bit of an eco-drama. So there is so much going on that it's hard to describe the plot without spoiling things. Alice also has a best friend called Amy, who is going off to live in like one of these gated communes where they're going to live off the land. They're going to retreat to the country for the sake of the children, but you've got to be wealthy to do that too. So it really is about the divide between the rich and the poor and how that's just getting wider and wider. And then Alice's bizarre psychology and bizarre life, which makes it really funny as well.
So is it almost a bit Orwellian? Because that book came true, didn't it? This book could come true.
It feels like it, actually.
It does,
I was sort of writing a review of it earlier on, and it was like, you know, a couple of years ago, this would have seemed apocalyptic. Now it just feels kind of normal.
It sort of sounds like it might have been far-fetched a while ago, but now I think, that's right on the button.
Yeah, so well done, Kirsten McDougall. It's addressing the issues of the day for sure.
Absolutely right, and if you want any of these fabulous books, there's only 2 places to get them.
Wardini Books have locked
That's right.
Wardini Books Napier.
Good on you, Lou. As always, my pleasure. You look after yourself. We'll talk to you same time, same place next time.
Cool, thanks, Ken.